Welcome back into In the Work podcast. My name is Matt Brzee with Action Coach Erie. And today, my guest is Kyle Ferrara. Kyle is the founder of FERVELL CPA. Welcome on in, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Excited to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to the discussion. Kyle, you and I have known each other for a little while. For those listening that don't know you, why don't you start there? Kind of tell us a little about your journey, what's led you to starting and founding Fervell, and then we'll kind of get into Fervell a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a long story, and I'll stick to the relevant parts for this conversation. But I started working in tax in 2018. I was working for a big accounting firm. A couple years after that, I got my CPA. But while I was working for these big accounting firms, the thing that stood out to me is that there is such a large opportunity and so many different paths for business owners to save on taxes and to take advantage of different rules. And conversely, such little appetite from the big firms to help them capitalize on it. And so a couple of years into my career, I started thinking, boy, I'd love to run my own business one day, run my own firm someday, and really bring these opportunities to business owners. And I probably would have done it years ago if I knew how well year one was going to go. We're coming up on the end of year one this fall, and it's been not only a great success for me and my family, but my clients seem very happy with the opportunities we've been able to bring to them.
So you left the big firm, jumped off, no parachute maybe, jumped off that cliff into business ownership, and year one is good. I heard you say, had you known it was going to be that way, maybe you would have done it sooner. Talk just a little bit about that, because I think people listening, whether they're aspiring to start their own business, they have their own business, etc. Tell me just in terms of the mindset between hesitation to do it versus when you kind of took the leap.
Yeah, I think I can speak specifically to my field, but then also in general for anybody looking to start a business. So for me, one of the hesitations is or was that there is so many complicating factors to tax law. It's hard to know everything. And so for a very long time in my career, it felt like, well, there was too much for me to know and too much to learn yet that I felt so far away from being able to run a business. And then I kind of realized that was kind of a limiting belief because you get to a certain point and you realize like you're not going to know everything. You just have to know how to figure things out. And that's true of specific tax rules as well as any other challenge I think that business owners are going through. Like I don't have all the answers in my own business, which can be challenging because people come to me for tax advice, but they also are coming to me for just general advice on running their business. And they look to me as somebody who has the answers. And sometimes I'm like in the same boat that they are, where it's like we're just running around trying to figure it out. Um, I know that it took, I'm going to take your advice and pause. Um, I'll say it this way. For me to achieve what I achieved in a year took a lot of support from other people, my community, my family, and it doesn't always happen that quickly for people. But I think for anyone who has a appropriate risk threshold where they want to do this and have a little bit of a hunger to do it. And I always say to clients and other people that like starting a business is a little bit of an act of defiance, where like there can be something better out there for you or for your family or for your clients. Like go for it. And I can't always promise how quickly success is going to come, but if you've got that belief and kind of fire in your gut to go do it, I wish I would have done it, 2 or 3 years ago instead of waiting as long as I did.
Well, I love that. First, appreciate you sharing that because to be able to share some humility and a little bit of vulnerability there and saying, you don't have all the answers. Um, we don't always hear that from people in your position, so I appreciate that. But I think what I'm hearing you say too is that it's a little bit that the timing is never going to be absolutely perfect. And someone shared with me recently the term I was reminded of the ready, fire, aim, right? Like just sometimes you just got to go. And it sounds like that's what you did there. So you kind of overcame some of that, what you call the limiting beliefs. You stepped off, and as you said, you kind of maybe weren't able to plan things out exactly as they've gone. You mentioned the support around you and things that have probably happened favorably or unfavorably in some ways that you didn't expect. So I think that's great. So let's segue that into then establishing Fervell. So you've made this decision, you've established the business. Tell us a little bit more then about Fervell, kind of your core beliefs and the way that you're structuring now your business based on what you said earlier, wanting to be different, wanting to set yourself apart from, as you sort of described, the bigger guys in the tax world. What does Fervell look like?
Yeah, and I think I can kind of bounce off and extrapolate on something that I said in a previous answer, right? So, as I said before, there's so much opportunity out there for small business owners and so little appetite to give them the advice. So that is one of two hallmarks of what we do at Fervell. We have that hunger and that appetite to get the right advice out there. And then the second hallmark, I would say, really just comes down to understanding that this is just as much a service business as anything else that you might typically think of as a service business. If it's, people in the trades, and I work with a lot of business owners in the trades as part of my client base. Um, but you think about like if your power's out and you need to call an electrician, like you want somebody to pick up the phone and show up right away. And that's the same thing that we've got to do as CPAs. A lot of CPAs who are running their own business or working for a big firm, they're kind of maxed out at capacity. And that means that they're not able to give the high level of service that clients really want. And as long as this mismatch kind of exists between the level of service that clients want and need and demand and the capacity constraints that CPAs face, like there's going to be opportunity out there for CPAs who can figure out how to meet that quality of service. For me, the way that we do it is we've got to be really intentional about who we take on and how many clients we take on because we put really a lofty promise out there. One of the first things I say to people when they ask what I do is I help business owners make more money and pay less tax. And that's what people generally want. But then that's a big promise, right? Because what I am promising is that I am going to help their business be successful. And I can't do that if they can only reach me 2 times a year or less. Um, so that's the biggest challenge that we face, and also kind of the biggest promise that we make is that, we are available to our clients as often as we need to be.
So taking that a step further, I've heard you describe kind of the what Fervell's doing as premium accountant or accounting versus a volume accountant. So just
Yeah.
go to play out that a little bit more.
Yeah, there's really two models, and this is probably true across various industries. But in the accounting world and the tax world, there's two models that you might run into. The first is a volume model, which is really we're going to do as many tax returns as we can for as cheap as possible with as little contact with the client as possible. Because so a volume shop, they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to hear from you, they want to get the info and spit a tax return back out and then see you again next year. And that's where those problems that we just spoke to before kind of exist because people get the tax return back and they don't know what they're looking at. And a lot of times they see a big number and they feel slapped in the face a little bit or not sure where it's coming from, but they can't get kind of the feedback and support that they want, either just to lower the number or sometimes just to come to terms with the number. Sometimes the number is what the number is. Conversely, the premium model is kind of what I was describing what we do, where we want this high premium level of service, and to be able to deliver it, it's got to be the opposite of volume. We can't just be looking at market share. We can't just be looking to take as many tax returns as we can. Some accountants, in fact, the first firm that I ever worked for, one of the partners there wanted to get us in the mindset of bringing in new business. And he just continually told us, like, every single person with a job has to file a tax return. Therefore, any single person in your life can be a client here. Um, and when you're new, like sometimes that helps, gives you confidence to sell. But if that's what the business development model of the firm is, then you get caught in that volume trap. So that's really, what I've always wanted to avoid.
So part of the way that you establish that premium accounting, you have something called the inner circle. Tell us about the FERVELL inner circle.
Yeah, this is fairly new, and I guess the business is still fairly new. We're not even a year old, but as I got through the spring and my first tax season, I kind of realized two things. Um, One is that there was something about the way I was talking about the firm that I wasn't quite happy with. And I realized what it was is that I was just kind of saying, like, I'm an accounting firm, I'm a tax firm, but I'm better or I'm cooler or um, something that is just not really tangible or objective to measure. And that's hard to prove in a discovery call or in a sales pitch. Um, and I think we had clients come on who experienced our service and felt like we were better, but they needed the proof instead of just a pitch. Um, and so instead of just saying that, okay, Fervell is better, I I thought about, like, what does better mean? Or even talking about, people will introduce me and say, this is Kyle, he's a CPA, but he's not like other CPAs. What does it mean to not be like other CPAs? Like, it can't just mean, I've said this joke to you before, it can't just mean that I'm funny, smart, and handsome, Matt. Like, it's got to mean something specific, as true as those three things might be.
All that and then some.
Right, right. And so if Fervell is going to be a better CPA firm or a different than other CPA firms, the service that we offer has to be something different than other CPA firms offer. And so that is, to your question that you asked probably an hour ago, because I've been talking so much, is what is the Fervell tax inner circle? So this is really something that Fervell can provide that no other firm in this region can provide because it's unique to the CPA that you're working with. Right now, that's me. As Fervell grows and we get other CPAs on our team, that inner circle framework is something that can apply to any CPA that's part of the Fervell network. But it is that tight relationship based approach to service that you're getting, where you are one of the handful of people that are getting direct access to input from, advice from me or another one of our CPAs as we build out a team. And I think people have come to like that. They want to be able to reach somebody right away. And as we continue to grow, I think that's really the differentiating factor between what we offer at Fervell and the experience people are getting elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you articulate that well, the differentiating experience. Like you said, it sort of started with jokingly, like, hey, we just can't say we're better because these facetious reasons. What ultimately, makes you better. So I think being able to define that. And you mentioned how year one, that's been a piece of your growth. Year one has been successful as you've grown. So now let's talk a little bit about that growth. You've got some people working for you, so you're not doing this on your own anymore. And with that, I would expect come some challenges too. So talk a little bit about the growth, both the positive, but also lessons learned and some of the challenges you're facing.
Yeah, this has been definitely a challenge for me, and it's funny. It's something I recognize in my clients too. Like I have clients who are in a similar boat to me, where maybe they started their business in the last couple of years, and they're getting to a point where like they can't do it all by themselves anymore. And sometimes they'll ask me what to do, and my answer is like, I'll let you know when I figure it out, because I have been right there with them. But I do have a little bit of a team. We brought on an outsourced admin team to really help me out with the non-technical stuff. And that has been a really great opportunity for me to get better as a leader and as a delegator. I said to my administrative team just the other day, like my mindset as I've been working with them, the first month, it was like this very anxious turnover of certain tasks to them and like thinking like there is so much that I could use their help with that I don't possibly know where to start. And it was like very hard to get moving. Then the second month, it became more like, oh, this delegating thing is really great. Like this is so awesome to have somebody who can handle something. And then it was just throwing more and more and more at them. Um, and the third month now where I'm at with them is like realizing, okay, um, delegating is really fun and I'm really getting good at it and loving it. This is also a resource allocation question of, what are the most effective tasks to be getting them? There's three people on this team, so what are they each uh, well suited for or best suited for? And then what are some things that even if I theoretically could delegate that to them, maybe from a resource standpoint, it still makes sense for me to handle it. That's been the evolution through that process, and I think I'm very grateful to have found the people on this team because it has allowed me to start thinking about how we're going to take FERVELL to the next level.
Yeah, so I think I heard you say you're kind of refining that process now in terms of the delegation. So just sort of to hit on that because I think that's a real thing for business owners. It's that letting go piece, and it's that process of letting go. I think you said delegating the right things then,
Mhm.
and then that process of how do you provide enough structure and follow up and follow through and support potentially without just letting them kind of run off. Now, in your case, do you face some of that to where you're still refining the process of delegation with some added support without micromanaging? Because that's the next thing I see a lot of owners having to balance is that, oh, okay, I can let go of this task, but that doesn't mean you can just sort of let it go and turn the other way and be off and running in this direction. That becomes that next step is kind of putting that system in place for checks and balances or reporting or kind of gauging and again ongoing support to see how it's going. Any experience, particularly with that you've learned from?
Yeah, I think kind of two sides of the same coin as far as an answer to that question. One is like I would start throwing things out to my admins and I would almost like throw it out there and then be afraid that I was going to lose track of it such that like it wasn't actually helping me to delegate because I was still obsessing over it. Um, and so I kind of worked through with them over the course of weeks, like this is how we're going to track and record and be on top of things that I sent to you in a way that like maybe I just check in once or twice a week to see what's on the list and what is being accomplished to that point. Um, the other side of it is like having a little bit of patience in a realistic way of knowing like, does something need to be done in the next 5 minutes or the next 5 hours or like is tomorrow okay? And so like there were times at the beginning where like I would hit a couple of obstacles. The first would be like questioning, is it going to take me longer to type out and tell them what I want them to do than to just do the thing myself.
Hmm.
And then once I kind of got over that, the next thing was like, I don't, are they going to do this today? Are they going to do it tomorrow morning? Like, I guess it doesn't really need to be done till Thursday. So we've got 3 days, but like, when are they going to do it? And like freaking out over that. Um, and then like the first couple of times then that I saw them hop on something quickly, and get done, like that really put me at ease. So I think it is an exercise in like having to trust somebody else, um, because it doesn't happen as instantaneously as if I just do it in that moment. But anything that I just do in that moment is taking me away from other activities that I need to get to. So I think I'm constantly getting better in that regard. And the more that I see things go well, the more that I have a degree of trust and can throw more and more things their way.
Yeah, so learn and adapt is kind of what I heard there, right? Is that um, get some experience with it. You kind of sounds like that self-reflection and the thinking you've done is how you've been able to adapt to refining your approach, which all the while has just sort of helped them and probably helped for the delegation piece. But I guess on that same sense, curious about what does future growth, what's kind of next for Vel as you settle in and kind of approach your 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, I'm grappling with that every day. So on one hand, my most important priority right now is to protect kind of the integrity of the promise that I have made to existing clients, and like making sure that as I grow, that level of service is not slipping in any way. And that's something that is like, I believe in my ability to do that, but it is like kind of stressful in a way that like I am worrying about that all the time as a business owner. I want my clients to be happy. Um, but I do know like the number of clients that I have now, I feel I can serve more, especially as we build out a team. And so I think about like, okay, in 3 years, what does this look like? In 5 years, what does this look like? Um, we talked about the Fervell tax inner circle, and that's really going to be the main service and selling point that we offer. But there are people who want quality service, but they don't feel like they want or need year-round service. And so this is kind of a middle ground. We talked about premium versus volume. It's something closer to volume, but with the high level of service that we promise. So, in addition to for Tax Inner Circle, something I have been kind of ideating on and trying to figure out how do we make this work is like a Fervell Tax Express package. And this is closer to that. Hey, I'm going to come into the spring and I've got my books already taken care of and I just need the tax return done. Okay, great. We'll get you scheduled. We'll get you taken care of. We're not going to ghost you or abandon you. But I think the people who sign up for this package do kind of know, like, okay, they're declining the ability to like be able to get in touch with me directly to my cell. They're kind of opting into a lower level of service. But as we build that out, this express package, I think what it would allow us to do is kind of get Fervell um, out to a wider region. And so like there are locations, even just within northwestern Pennsylvania, where I've thought like, even though I am a virtual firm, does it make sense to have a brick and mortar Fervell location that is this express-based service where people can just come in with their documents and know that, okay, 2 weeks later, my tax return is going to be done, and here's the number I can call where I'm going to get the office manager, whoever it is. Um, so that's what I want to figure out next is how do we distribute our our high quality advice and to our high quality service to a wider audience without stretching our capacity too thin.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what you said earlier too, wanting to build this differently and stay unique boutique, if you will, if that's the right word or not. But premium, let's stick with premium, the word you used, right? To remain premium, but seeing also that option because it sounds like that could be the door too to, hey, this is all I either need or want at this stage. But even as you talked, as other businesses grow and they get to a point to say, yes, now that I've received that great service and that's what I needed, well, now I'm ready for this. Now I'm ready for premium. But it kind of gives them that chance to get a taste of that premium service. That's kind of the goal, where it's maintain kind of the core pillars, if you will, on how you want to build the business, but also be available to more businesses that could need it.
Yeah, and I think like people do need that taste a little bit. So many times I've talked with prospective clients, or even when I was working with other firms, I would talk with business owners, and they'd be like a little bit skeptical of one, what you're promising them, and two, like a little bit skeptical of what you're saying the price is going to be. And so I've had conversations with the folks, and they're telling me how unhappy they are with their current accountant, and nothing's getting done. And we'll get to a point where we start talking price, and they'll say kind of like, I can't believe that number. I'm paying the current guy half of that. And so they think it should cost half of what the number is, or whatever the math is. And the conversation a little bit is like, that number that you're anchored on, that's what it costs for them not to do it, and you be angry about it all the time. Um, to your point about the express package, giving people a kind of taste and then thinking, okay, like I do want more out of this. I think that's exactly what the hope for that model is. The other thing that it does really well is there are a lot of people who are kind of getting squeezed out of being able to work with a CPA, because so many CPAs are going upstream to middle market businesses and larger businesses, that small business owners to a certain extent, and especially people who are just filing their individual tax return, who are not business owners at all. Um, CPAs won't even return their inquiry because that they feel there's not enough meat on the bone there. And I think that these people are still able to be helped. Um, and that we can do it in a way that gives them everything that they're looking for, in a way that makes a lot of business sense and is justifiable for business reasons. So that express package is something I hope kind of addresses that area of the market too.
Great. As we're talking about helping business owners, October 1st, you're going to be our guest presenter at my next Growth Club workshop
Yeah.
here in Erie, right? So for those that don't know what Growth Club is, every 90 days, every quarter, we have a workshop. We bring in business owners, really intended to work on the next quarter's plan. And it's a day of networking, but also kind of like you were saying, a little bit of the goal of the inner circle is to get a little bit deeper level of some business knowledge, understanding that a lot of the challenges that business owners are going through are the same kind of across the board, or experience at different times, just similar issues. So excited about having you there, Kyle, because for an hour or change, you are going to kind of share with business owners in the room that attend that day, a little bit more knowledge and kind of what you're talking about, and just the ways that they can, on their own, be able to know their numbers and understand kind of their cadence. If you can, give us a little bit of taste or a little touch on what you intend to kind of cover at Growth Club on October 1st.
Yeah, well, I think to this point in our conversation, like when I've alluded to the work that I do, we've talked pretty much about like tax advice and saving money on taxes. But what I love about what we're going to cover at Growth Club is we're kind of talking about things on a wider picture, where you help people and do such a good job of it, figure out their quarterly plan and what is their whole year going to look like. And anything that they are working on in your growth club, or if they do private coaching with you and get the massive benefit of that, there are numbers to support whatever challenge they're facing or whatever goal they want to hit. Um, and any challenge that a business owner might face is an accounting problem, whether they know it or not, because there's something on their financial statements that'll help unlock the answer. So we're really going to get into, what is the appropriate tempo for a business owner to go through throughout the year. And it's going to touch on, you know, certain ratios and metrics that you can pull from your financial statements, certain kind of cash flow questions and planning that you can do throughout the year. Industry to industry, those things are all going to be a little bit different. But I think that there is enough consistency that whether somebody is coming in and they own a pest control business or they're coming in and they're developing an app for some kind of tech business, they can get a lot out of this to better understand like this is what my financial statements are telling me, and this is the information I can pull from it to address what is my quarter 3 goal or what is my, annual goal.
Awesome. Well, October 1st, up at Penn State Barron, we'll be looking forward to that. A lot of good stuff. We'll put the link to registration in the show notes as well. Last couple of questions as we try to wrap up, Kyle. Uh, you're building a business here in Erie, Pennsylvania, Northwest Pennsylvania. You said you kind of returned to this area to do so. What is it that you love about the Erie region for building a business?
Yeah, so I was always Erie adjacent, man, which I know is the opposite of you. Like you are Erie through and through, and I think you have only accepted jobs at places that have Erie in the name of the business, from what I understand.
You're right
Um,
about that.
I was, as I say, Erie adjacent. I grew up in Cleveland. I went to college in Buffalo, bounced back to Cleveland. But my wife, Lacey, grew up in Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania, and eventually we wanted to make a move here. Um, all the time that I was in another city near Erie, I drove through it frequently enough, and I kind of like felt, who would want to live in Erie? I could live here, I could live there, but the more I started to come to like to visit my in-laws and just spend time with my wife, and as we started having kids and can bring them out here, um, I really grew to get attached to the area, and I think I noticed two things with Erie. There's a certain segment of people who live in Erie who I think like have just thoroughly written off the city and decided that it is something that maybe on the surface it looks like, and they just kind of that's it. They're done thinking about how it could be better. But there's so many people in Erie who are actively and aggressively trying to make it a really beautiful place to live and starting businesses here and getting involved in the downtown. And I think like I relate very much to those people and have latched on to that kind of optimism because I do, now that I've lived here, see all the great things that the city has going for it and want to make it a great place. The last thing I'll say on that note, I was just having a conversation with two colleagues at Radius Cowork, where my office is, and I spend most of my time. And you've probably heard before, Matt, the slogan, like, it's okay to love Erie. And we were talking about this, and one of them said, like, I really hate when people say that because, like, of course it's okay. Like, you're from here. Like, why would you not love where you're from? And the other person pointed out, like, that slogan is for the people who have written off Erie, and they
Mm.
need to be reminded that, like, it's okay to invest in your community. And then there's others of us who, like, already get it, and it's like saying, like, it's okay to breathe air. Like, yeah, of course. Like, this is such an obvious thing. Um, so I do. To your original question, I have grown to love Erie the longer I've lived here, and I want to make it, the best community we can make it.
Well, I'm a self-proclaimed big cheerleader of Erie. Have been for a long time as someone who's raised my family here. My wife and I, we found opportunity here. We've had opportunities to leave, and we haven't because we just love this region. So I love seeing people like you that decide to pull up roots, raise a family, build a business. Oh, by the way, your wife is also running her own business. That's another podcast for another time, I think.
That's right.
Um, so love to hear that. So final question then related to that. It's still summertime here in Erie. Tell me what you love about summers in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I think one place that is special to me and that I really enjoy, um, I do like going up to Presque Isle. We don't make it out there as often as I would like. We live down in Edinburgh, and so it's sometimes a little bit easier for us to go over to Edinburgh Lake instead. But Presque Isle kind of has a special place in my story and my wife's story. Our first date was there back when we were in college. Um, you get during the summer um, a really like idyllic place to live and spend time outdoors. And I know there's only a certain number of those days every calendar year. There's plenty of times where we have snow and rain. Um, but when everything lines up, I don't think there's anywhere in the world more beautiful than this kind of Great Lake region. In Erie, I think has so much going for it that like there's plenty to go out and enjoy and have fun doing in the summertime in a way that I really love.
Yeah, love that. Final question, where can people find you? Website, best way to get in touch with you, Kyle.
Yeah, I am active on LinkedIn. You can find me by name there. And then fervellcpa.com, FERVELL CPA.com is the website for the business. There's going to be a couple of upcoming changes to the website, but that's where you can learn a little bit more about what we do.
Awesome, Kyle. Thanks for coming on. You're building something great, and I know you'll have plenty sunny days ahead, both in Erie, Edinburgh, and wherever else you decide to take Fervell. So appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Enjoyed the conversation.